Afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Way Forward Workshop, Leader Lunch Break. We are thrilled to welcome Tania Menesse to our conversation. Ms. Menesse immigrated to Cleveland at the age of 4, and when she graduated from Shaker Heights High School, it was never in her plans to make Cleveland her forever home. She was off to University of Virginia and then a successful career in telecommunications sales in Dallas and Denver. Fortunately for Cleveland, life intervened and she found herself returning to Shaker Heights with her husband, a fellow Shaker Heights High School grad, to raise their growing family. She continued working in the private sector until a volunteer opportunity at Towards Employment sparked her interest in working in the community and changed her trajectory. Armed with passion, she pursued a master's in urban planning at Cleveland State and then quickly set about leaving her mark and generating impact and economic development, first as the Director of Economic Development for Shaker Heights, and then Director of Community Development for the City of Cleveland. You don't have to look far to see her fingerprints. Global Cleveland, Launch House, the Van Aken District, Lead Safe Coalition, to name just a few of the many initiatives which succeeded because of her leadership. She was selected as president and CEO of Cleveland Neighborhood Progress in the fall of 2020 following a national search. A former board chair described her as a highly respected leader known for her collaborative leadership style and ability to build partnerships. In her less than 18 months at the helm of Cleveland Neighborhood Progress, she has done just that, focusing her work on strengthening neighborhoods and embedding racial equity as part of the core vision of the organization. She's been recognized as a 40 under 40 and is a proud member of the Leadership Cleveland class of 2022. Thank you for joining us today, Tania. I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Marianne. That was such a warm introduction. It's so funny to hear your life through someone else's voice, but it sounded really good. So thanks for that. I'm really honored and privileged to talk with all of you today. I see a lot of familiar faces, and so looking forward already to the Q&A so that we can hone in on what you all really want to talk about. But I did want to start with a little bit of background on who Cleveland Neighborhood Progress is. I think that I don't want to take that for granted, and it's really evolved over the years. The late 1980s, the Gund, Cleveland, and Mandel Foundations started Cleveland Neighborhood Progress to really professionalize the community development corporations and to really focus their grant making. In the early 90s, what was really important is they realized that while we were building capacity for the community development corporations, there really wasn't enough financial capital or development capacity at the CDCs, so they helped to seed what now are 2 subsidiaries of CNP, Village Capital Corporation, which is a community development finance institution that really helps bridge the gap on neighborhood projects, and then New Village Corporation, which is instrumental in the transformation often of key neighborhood assets. So I'm sitting in the St. Luke's building, the former hospital that my predecessors at CNP were really integral to saving. And if all of you have been paying attention, again, I see some of you on this call who've been helpful in this process. City Council last week did move to hopefully help New Village Corporation take ownership of Shaker Square with New Village, with Burton Bell Carr. And so those are the kinds of projects that the 2 subsidiaries do. I'm going to focus most, though, my comments today about Cleveland Neighborhood Progress. We spent the last year in a strategic planning process, and it really helped us better understand what does it mean to be an intermediary and to support the people who are really doing the work on the ground, right? There are hundreds of employees of community development corporations all over our city, and they're the ones who best understand what residents and small businesses need to be successful, best understand the needs of our communities. And our role as CNP is to support them. It's to ensure they have the resources they need to succeed. And so I don't want to spend too much time with a shared screen, but I am going to just put this framework up for a couple minutes of this conversation to kind of help ground the work. We really wanted to make sure through our new mission, which is to equitably, I have to be able to say it, equitably revitalize neighborhoods throughout Cleveland by strengthening the community development ecosystem. And what was really important about that is it's not just the CDCs, right? For the community development corporations to be successful, they need the entire ecosystem working. And so much of our work is about connecting the dots that other people don't see. It's really helping the place-based organizations who might best understand the needs of Central or understand the needs of Kinsman or of West Park to connect with the resources that are not place-based. So in this new model, again, CDC advancement and resilience is at the center. Our main goal is to ensure that CDCs, whether it's talent attraction, helping them build their boards, dealing with their financial constraints, building the real estate capacity of the CDCs to build the neighborhoods, that's our main work. And then around that are really the skill sets, the subject matter experts who help augment that work. And so the CDC relationship managers are meeting with CDCs, and if, for example, the CDC needs a neighborhood plan, or they're trying to get a project financed, or they're trying to better utilize their federal resources, or they have an issue with work that's happening from a policy framework, right? Those needs, hearing from them really drives the work of the areas of focus around CDC advancement and resilience. Specifically, something that I think all of us know is since the foreclosure crisis, we have not spent a lot of time and energy on building real estate capacity in our neighborhoods. And we really see that in that the neighborhoods, and you'll keep hearing me say this, on the southeast side of Cleveland, but not just the southeast side, in Collinwood, in St. Clair, if the CDCs and other nonprofit entities are not revitalizing, aren't rebuilding these neighborhoods, the private market isn't going to do so in this moment. So a lot of the equitable neighborhood revitalization piece is all of the pieces and parts that make a place someplace you want to live. And it's really our leaders in sustainability and economic development, workforce development, parks and open space, connecting to all of the organizations that can really support them, whether it's Jumpstart, Western Reserve Land Conservancy, Trust for Public Land, and making sure that the projects on the ground are really getting the support they need. Access to capital is Village Capital Corporation, but more than that, it is ensuring that all the federal resources, whether it's the standard allocation of community development block grant funds, home funds, the new American Rescue Plan dollars, infrastructure dollars, are appropriately used within neighborhoods. And that's a really tough task for small organizations. It's also to raise philanthropic dollars outside of Cleveland. For our community development ecosystem to truly work, we've got to grow this pie and ensure that organizations, philanthropic organizations outside of Cleveland understand the opportunities and the great work happening here. And finally, and probably most importantly, it's to get the private market working in our neighborhoods. So we spend a lot of time, and will continue to, with our private banking partners to really try to ensure that they are writing mortgages and giving small business loans in our neighborhoods. And then finally, the thing that we heard most from the CDCs as I started was we needed to lift up their voices from an advocacy and marketing perspective, tell the story of our neighborhoods, ensure that through what was the mayoral and council campaigns, that the issues that were coming from the neighborhoods were really being heard. We put together a neighborhood platform with the CDCs that we're really proud to say did help drive a lot of the discussion during the campaigns, but more importantly, are really helping Council President Griffin and Mayor Bibb govern. And we're starting to do that for the county races now as well. And then really on the outside of this framework, critically important, this is how we judge if we're successful. So from a racial equity and inclusion standpoint, we are spending a significant amount of our time and our resources on the southeast side Cleveland neighborhoods. If in 5 years you don't see a measurable difference in Mount Pleasant, in Buckeye, in Union Miles, we will not have succeeded. We know that development is on a 10 and 20-year trajectory, but you should be able to see some real change and improvement in these neighborhoods if we are successful. From an economic opportunity perspective, again, are we inviting the banks in? Have we been able to bridge enough of the gap that more residents in Cleveland have a mortgage from a traditional bank. More small business are getting a loan. More residents are connected into workforce opportunities with living wages. And then finally, applied thought leadership is really focused on ensuring that our community development system is moving forward, that the best ideas that often come out of the neighborhoods are lifted up and looked at more broadly than just in that specific neighborhood. It's really difficult for a CDC leader in Clark Fulton to be able to spread a fantastic idea throughout the city. Are we bringing best practices into our community? Are we encouraging innovation and new ideas? So I'm going to stop sharing this slide because, again, I really like to be able to see people rather than my slide, and just talk for a minute or two about that focus on CDCs and on the southeast side of Cleveland. We really view as we have in the past, but with a renewed focus, our ability to succeed and have our community development corporation succeed is a really strong partnership between City Hall. So both City Council and the City Administration, residents, the community development corporations. If they're all working in tandem, I mean, it's really clear the neighborhoods where that's happened over the years, right? I see our former Councilwoman Phyllis Cleveland on the line here, and it was really clear, right? A very challenging neighborhood that had seen some incredibly difficult times, but when you had the Councilwoman with Tim Tramble leading BBC and a lot of support from the city administration, engaged residents, you saw success in those neighborhoods. And that's really, you know, often the most basic building blocks are the hardest to put in place, but really where our focus is on the southeast side, helping the communities in Mount Pleasant and Union Miles rebuild their community development infrastructure. We've got some great leaders and people like Rashawn Samples, but they've really not had the support that they've needed over the years, and putting that infrastructure in place so the new council leaders and the city administration can make the investments that they want to make in the neighborhoods is really our charge. So it's exciting that we'll be focused on Lee Harvard, that is a traditional middle neighborhood, has great assets, has a community development corporation that's growing in their acumen and support. Burton Belcar, that's been leading the charge now in Buckeye, Shaker Square, Larchmere, really building their capacity. And then, as I said, really helping the neighborhoods of Mount Pleasant and Union Miles build that infrastructure so they can be good partners to the city and city council, but mostly uplifting the voices and the needs of their residents in ways that the community can act upon. It's not that we won't be working in St. Clair and Collinwood. It's really important that C&P represents the whole city. But I think we have to be clear from a racial equity standpoint that the neighborhoods that have seen the least investment are the ones that are going to need the most support, versus what we've often done in the past as a community, which is understandable, is build on strengths, right? It's a very understandable thing to say we're going to build on our strengths, but that's been a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, unfortunately, where we've continued to leave neighborhoods behind. So there's a lot more I can say there, but it's 12:14, and I would rather kind of wait and take questions and speak to the topics that you're most interested in.
Tania, thank you so much. And we've had quite a few questions come in, so we'll jump right in. Can you share a little bit more about where CDC funding comes from and what percentage is block grant money?
Yeah, that kind of comes right to the challenge that our community development corporations face. So what you'll find is CDCs that have other anchors in their neighborhoods have been able over time to raise flexible dollars outside of CDBG funding, are generally the ones that are most successful. It is no secret that while it's critically important to utilize community development block grant money, and so sorry to start by answering the real question, is the majority, the base of funding for CDCs from the city is community development block grant money. That money is awarded partially through the Community Development Department at the City of Cleveland and partially through in partnership with City Council members. There is a lot of concern about that process, right? And a lot of how functional it is to have small organizations operate with what is really complex funding. And then also from HUD and ongoing perspective, the politics that come to play. It can be done and it can be done well, but it really depends on the cooperation between those organizations. There are CDCs where more than 2/3 of their funding, some of them almost 90% of their funding is CDBG money. But again, if you're able to raise foundation dollars, if you're in a neighborhood where there's a strong community anchor that helps support you, like the St. Luke's Foundation here, or the Sisters of Charity, others, those flexible dollars are often what help you truly engage your residents and better support the community.
So how do you balance building trust and authentically engaging with community partners while also moving quickly as you seek to achieve some of your outcomes?
Yeah, that's a great question and speaks to something that I wish I had started with. It was a commitment that we made when we started, that we were not going to design any programs or accept dollars or funds from others without truly engaging the community development corporations in program design and in implementation in the neighborhoods. So a really good example of that is the Rocket Community Foundation came to us to deploy their Neighbor to Neighbor program in Cleveland. Wonderful opportunity. We've done that with them, but we went back and said, listen, we can't do more at the CDCs without having engagement and empowerment staff that's consistent at the CDCs, that is out there speaking to residents, because everything moves at the speed of trust, right? And we know, and we saw this during the pandemic, you may have, CMSD had computers and digital connectivity to give away, but if people didn't trust who was handing them that computer, they didn't believe that it was free. If you're trying to get people to take vaccines, to answer the census, to take on home repair opportunities from the city, all of that only happens if the people on the ground are people you see on a consistent basis, who have delivered for you, who you believe have your best interest in mind, and probably most importantly, have taken the time to listen to you over time. And unfortunately, over the years, those engagement and empowerment folks at CDCs are always the first ones to get cut, because they don't translate into housing units or small business units. And again, I don't want to diminish the importance of both, but if we're going to really be effective in raising up our neighborhoods, that's the way you do it. And our commitment to the CDCs is that we're going to be a broken record with our funding partners and others continuously saying that, is that if we don't value the people on the ground who are actually interacting day-to-day with residents, we're never going to be successful in this work.
What are some of the benchmarks that you've set for neighborhood success? And are they similar across the community, or do they differ based on the neighborhood?
Yeah, so we've been having this conversation about what is a CDC, and through our strategic planning process, putting together kind of what is the baseline of a maturity model that speaks to kind of every CDC should have the capacity to do X, and not doing that in a way that faults those CDCs if they don't have that capacity, but helping them build it, because chances are they don't, because they haven't had the resources to do so or the support structure to do so. So we're kind of in the process of defining that, but there's no question that what you need today to rebuild the Union Miles community is just completely different than what Northwest Neighborhoods needs, which is now the new organization for Detroit, Shoreway, Edgewater, and Cadell. You just can't look at this. They're just truly apples and oranges in terms of what the neighborhoods need. But I do think there is a certain level of what does a strong CDC need, right? We tend to interchange these things. A neighborhood can need a great deal of support, but the CDC actually may have most of the capacity to meet that support, versus some of our neighborhoods that are really now, for example, a Tremont in Ohio City, their main focus is ensuring that they have affordable housing in those neighborhoods, that they don't lose that opportunity for people to live in those neighborhoods, and more about community building versus, again, neighborhoods that really need to focus on bricks and mortar construction.
Actually, our next question picks up around kind of the example you used around Ohio City and Tremont. So how do you maintain the character of the neighborhoods in the face of economic development and manage around gentrification?
Mhm. So we've been really involved in helping with enterprise community partners to lead an equitable development working group for the last several years. You'll see announcements of the tax abatement policy recommendations we're making to the community. And it's a lot of what spurred the city's 10-year housing plan. And all of that is focused on there isn't one size fits all neighborhoods, there isn't one size fits all tools, and we have to really meet neighborhoods where they are and look at the fact that, again, if you've got a middle neighborhood like Lee Harvard or Collinwood or Old Brooklyn, what you're really trying to do is take those final steps to ensure that the market functions in those neighborhoods. And the focus is more about commercial redevelopment and parks and green space and community building. And there are different incentives and there are different support structures you need to kind of keep those neighborhoods healthy and not have them tip in a certain way. We tried to look at tax abatement being a way to revitalize all neighborhoods. It was very clear from the study that we did in 2020 and then looking into now the 10-year housing plan that you just have to look at what are the incentives that are appropriate to build up a neighborhood, build up a community in a way that, again, we have this really great opportunity in Cleveland to do so in an equitable way where the housing prices are not coming up so quickly, right, as they have in some of our neighborhoods. Again, a very small number of neighborhoods, but the people who live in those neighborhoods feel it acutely, to learn from that and ensure that as we're revitalizing neighborhoods, we're really maintaining that middle that allows for mixed income. And the real challenge there is federal tools are focused as that they should appropriately be on the lowest income, and then the market takes care of the highest income, and then the middle falls out. And that's where we're really trying to ensure that the city's ARPA funds and other unique opportunities, hopefully with private financial partners, focuses on not losing that middle in our communities, because we see some of the most successful big cities have lost their middle income.
Can you speak to the current situation around Shaker Square and the vision for the space?
Much better today than last week. So it's still a little, we've got some ways to go before, unfortunately, we can get into the fun of how we want to envision Shaker Square. City Council last week, thankfully, did vote to move forward with the opportunity to purchase the square. The bondholders who still hold the mortgage have to agree to take our offer. We should know that in the next 2 or 3 weeks, but it does look promising. If that does happen, then the next 6 to 12 months, it will be very focused on stabilizing the square, kind of finalizing the fundraising that we started, doing the capital needs assessment, property management, really ensuring that these tenants who have really lived through honestly hell, whether it's COVID or this foreclosure over the last 3 years, are able to stay at the square. In parallel, Burton Bell Carr with Terry Hamilton Brown, who's helping to lead this effort, will start engaging residents again. And I want to say start because we really want to be sensitive to the fact that we don't get too far ahead of ourselves, right? Engaging residents on what do they want to see at the square. The really exciting part about the square right now is there's a great group of tenants there. It's one of the most diverse group of tenants that you'll see across the city, serving the needs of the neighborhoods quite well. So an important part now is to give the community an opportunity to weigh in, to start to express their needs and what they'd like to see the square to be long term, but thankfully not to, and honestly not to rush through that process, to give the community some time to get there while we stabilize the real estate.
And how do you see the role of parks and green space in neighborhood revitalization?
Yeah, so this is an ongoing conversation. I know some of you may have read Sunday's PD article about the fact that Cleveland on paper has a really good walk score and a really good proximity to parks, but something that we were really proud to be part of the Parks and Green Space Coalition during the campaign It's really focused on, we saw this during COVID. We know that great communities have great open spaces. You must have places where families can recreate, where they can convene. It's the great equalizer, right? You don't need to make a lot of money to be able to enjoy a park. And I'm really thankful that the new administration is very focused on parks and green space. We have a great leader on our team, Drew Sargent, who is really involved in these conversations. And when we look at the social determinants of health and quality of life indexes across the country, they go up exponentially, even in neighborhoods where people's income is very low, when they have green space, when they can breathe, when there are trees, where they can be quiet, and then when they can play. And so we kind of say, you know, you have to look at a neighborhood as healthy housing, enough open green space, a safe passage for people to walk and cycle and drive, and then amenities in the commercial corridor. And that 15-minute city that you're starting to hear Director Wong, our new planning director, which is very exciting, talk about, I think is something we'll be a big part of, and really is all about just a livable place.
As you look ahead for the next 3 to 5 years, what's your vision for Cleveland neighborhoods and what are you most excited for?
Oh my gosh. I think our vision is really trying to, I mean, it's not very sexy, right? A lot of it is really just trying to stabilize the quality of life for residents who have truly been left behind in our community. We just have a fantastic opportunity right now with the federal funds that are coming into our communities to make investments in places where it's been very difficult to, and help connect people to opportunities that they just didn't have before. You know, as a whole, like, we really look at the excitement and potential of being partners and collaborators on some of the bigger initiatives in Cleveland. But our charge is really to look at those neighborhood scale interventions that make a difference in people's day-to-day lives. And we're just really excited to have leadership at the city and at city council that see the nonprofit sector as true partners and an extension of their work, and that we can really kind of speak truth to power, and at the same time help the administration take their vision for the neighborhoods out to the community.
How can we support you and your work and our neighborhoods as we look forward?
Well, you know, I think for a lot of you who are on the call who don't live in a Cleveland neighborhood or don't often go into a Cleveland neighborhood, something we talk about a lot is trying to change the narrative about Cleveland's communities, right? There are wonderful people who care deeply about their neighborhoods, excellent businesses throughout Cleveland's neighborhoods. We're really excited about partnerships we've established with Destination Cleveland to help raise the profile of a lot of our neighborhoods that are not necessarily, you know, tourism neighborhoods, but very livable neighborhoods. To kind of combat the evening news, if you may, to spread the word about the good things happening in Cleveland neighborhoods. You know, if you don't come into Cleveland neighborhoods often, pick a summer event, find a restaurant, talk with folks, because I think we as a region have to just do a much better job of celebrating the city of Cleveland's neighborhoods, and there's a lot to celebrate in them. And I think, you know, raising that with our friends and neighbors who maybe don't live in the city would be really helpful.
And one final question. What restaurant would you recommend checking out if someone's looking for something new?
All right. Well, I live in the Shaker Square Larchmont neighborhood, and my favorite place is Felice. So I'm very biased there, but I could tell, well, I have staff and friends who could probably tell you one in every single neighborhood in Cleveland, and probably 6. So no shortage of opportunities to enjoy our neighborhoods.
Well, Tania, thank you so much for sharing your vision and all the work that UNCNP is doing to help elevate our community. And we are very much looking forward to all that's to come. And I'm going to turn it back to Marianne.
Thanks so much, Rachel. And thank you, Tania. The half hour just flew by. Thank you for all of the information that you shared. And we're excited to watch your vision unfold and see our neighborhoods grow stronger. in the months and years ahead.